So I picked up a used e-bike yesterday. It's a Trek Powerfly 5. And so I'm going to get this thing out and clean it up a little bit because it looks like it has never been washed. There's about 1,250 kilometers on it. It's a 2019 model. And it's got 27.5 wheels, but I believe I can get 29s in there. But we'll see. I've got a set of extra 29-inch wheels and possibly some additional parts to put on there. So let's get this thing out and get it cleaned up. $1,273 miles. So there's my enduro bike. So this is going to be my, I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not really into e-bikes, but it was a good deal and something that I can use to top off the other bike collections. All right, so we've got the bike up in the stand. This is a Trek Powerfly 5. Just purchased it yesterday. It is a used bike, 2019 model, in pretty good condition. 1,275 miles, or kilometers I should say. 1,275 kilometers. Still has the original tires. Still got pretty good tread on them. But this thing is dirty. It's the dirtiest bike I've ever seen. So we're going to be cleaning the cassette, derailleur, the chain. It's just gonna need a nice once over. See, the brakes are pretty dirty and dusty. That bike was definitely not washed regularly, you can tell. But it is a beautiful bike, beautiful color. I think it's considered red, but it really looks orange in the light. It's got the RockShox Recon front fork. I believe it will accept a 29-inch front wheel, but it currently has 27.5 wheels on it. So we are gonna do a quick wash on it, get it cleaned up, and lubricate it and service it really good before we put it out on the trail. So I'm gonna get started on that. a little bit ridiculous on the oil. So you can see here that it's piled up on there pretty good. Getting a little bit of the gunk off before I remove the chain and clean it, but it almost seems like I should just take the chain off completely, clean the cassette off the bike, clean the chain off the bike, because it is just a little too gunked up from using just soap and water. Alright, so first of all we're going to take the chain off, take the rear wheel off, take the cassette off, and probably clean the derailleur just in place. I doubt I'm going to take it completely off, but we're going to get all this stuff like super clean, get this chain degreased, and we will super clean it and wax it. Because that's what I do with all my chains. It just makes it a lot less maintenance for the future. Then I will, while the wheels are off, I will pull the brake pads out and clean those with alcohol. Maybe give them a light sanding just to make sure that I don't have any debris in there from the cleaning, because I'm worried I may have gotten some oil or grease on the rotors themselves just from spraying it off, just because there was little grease spots everywhere. So I want to clean those before I hit the brakes and make sure that my pads are nice and clean, don't have any noise. whoever put this cassette on put it on way too tight, because I can't even get it to budge right now. So I'm gonna have to maybe use a little BFH on it. I don't know if some of you guys might know what that is, but this is a BFH. Oh my God. Oh my God. What the fuck? Not having any luck. This thing says 40 Newton meters, and I swear it is tighter than 40 foot-pounds. So I don't know what to do. It's almost like I need an impact wrench. And maybe that's what I'm gonna try. All right, hold tight. So we're gonna try the Makita impact, which I don't know if that's gonna work. It's not that strong, but maybe. Nope, that's not working either. All right, so you can see here, like I've bent my chain whip. That's how tight this thing is. That's ridiculous. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this thing off. All right, so I got it using the trusty torque wrench, and it was still difficult. So I don't know who decided to put this thing on, but they put it on with way more than 40 Newton meters, not 40 foot-pounds or 400 foot-pounds, 40 Newton meters. That's like not a lot. So now we can take this thing off and clean each individual sprocket here. That looks much better. There's 4. So just repeat that on all the gears. And I do believe this is a 10-speed. And it appears it is one cassette after that, so only 2 separate gears. So I'm going to have to take this to the sink or take it outside and put some degreaser on it and scrub it with a brush. Alright, I'm going to go outside, clean this with a brush, some soap, get the backside all cleaned up as well. Be back in a minute. Alright, so we scrubbed it with dish soap. I don't have any degreaser, but this chain lube is like the goopiest stuff. I mean, it doesn't even, the soap doesn't even take it off. So I do have some brake cleaner. I'm going to try that. So we'll see how that works. Alright, so it appears the brake cleaner works pretty good. So I'm going to hose it down, wipe it off, and then hose it down maybe a little bit more. Alright, I believe that's going to be good enough. I'm going to wipe it down with a clean cloth, and I believe that's going to be good enough. Definitely much better. It's actually pretty now. While I'm at it, well, I've got this soaked with brake cleaner. I'm going to wipe the chain down. Help get some of the crud off of it, because it is so gunked up. It is moving quite well now, and before it was kinked up. Look, there's so much lubricant on it. It was stiff and not wanting to flex very well. And do make sure you wear gloves when you're doing stuff like this, because I mean, look at this. This is, you do not want these chemicals on your hands. And I need to change one glove now because it's got a hole in it. This stuff will soak into your skin and poison you. Slowly but surely. Alright, so I'm going to drop this down in some, actually going to drop it down in some gasoline and let that do some cleaning. Alright, so check this out. This is, it was behind the cassette. This is why I wanted to pull it off, to get all this cleaned up. Not necessarily the grease on the driver, but on the spokes and all around the hub here. So I'm going to wipe that off real quick. Now, I'm not going to take the rotor off, but I am going to wipe it down with some isopropyl rubbing alcohol and just clean it really good. So make sure that I'm not contaminating my brake rotors. Alright, so we've got some rubbing alcohol here, and we're just going to apply this. So I've got new gloves on, so they're not oily, and we're just going to use a paper towel for this. Get that nice and saturated. And I'm just going to see, there's some debris, dirt, grime. Could be just a little bit of brake rotor material or brake pad material, but this kind of super cleans it. Alright, so that wheel looks pretty good. Rotor's clean. Maybe I'm going to try to get down in the little areas there. Not super critical, but while I'm in there, might as well make it look brand new. We're going to do the same thing on this one. Alright, so now you can see here where the frame is still a little bit dirty and crusty, and we're gonna wipe all that down and get it nice and clean and spick and span, and then we'll pull the brake pads out and we'll clean those with some alcohol since we're doing the tune-up, and then we'll clean this derailleur a little bit better. Got our brake pads here. See, there's a little leaf in there, some debris. Alright, so first I'm gonna clean my hands. Now I'm gonna see how much debris was on that one. Whew, look at that one. I mean, it's probably just brake dust, but you know, could be some impurities in there. Those look a little cleaner there. So now we can put those back in and put the wheel back on, make sure the rotor is straight and true, and adjust the brakes if we need to, but I think they're going to be fine. Alright, so it's good to make sure that you don't touch the pads, the surface, once you've got them nice and clean. So put them together like that, and this little spring here goes in between like that. Kind of slide them up into the caliper. Put the cotter pin back through. And you want to bend this cotter pin back out straight, but you don't want to bend it too much. Or I say bend, not bend it from straight. Just take that long arm there, just enough to keep it in place. Well, we got to put the cassette back on the wheel, and then we'll put the wheel back on. You're clean. Alright, so this cassette goes on there a very specific way. You have a tiny gear notch here that meets a tiny gear notch right here. So that's on. And you want the numbers, you want those to face out. Alrighty. And now we're going to put this lock ring back on, and we're going to torque it to the proper specs. Actually, I believe that is missing a washer. There should be a small washer in there. It's like a spring-loaded washer that grips on one side and grips on the other, but doesn't grip together, and I think that may be why it was so tight. It's actually missing that spring washer. So we're going to put this back on just the way it is, but we're not going to tighten it up very much because it doesn't need it, especially with the grip. You hear it. And so we can put our wrench back on here. I believe that will be tight enough. And that was not a lot of pressure, but with that grip of those teeth, it is not going to come loose. So now we're going to put it back on the bike. The axle is another thing. You don't need it super tight. Actually, maybe a little tighter than that. Wheel looks straight and round. Spins freely. Sounds good. Rotor appears to be pretty straight. And the brake pads are spaced properly, no rubbing. And so the rear, now I'm ready to put a chain back on once it's cleaned. That may take a little while. So now we're going to do the same thing to the front. We're going to clean the front rotor, clean the pads, and just do a little detail cleanup around the hub. So we've got this little tool here, and that goes picture here. Right between the brake pads here, and that spreads the brake pads out, so it makes it easier to get your wheel in. Now I'm going to remove the cotter pin. And you want to bend this just till it gets straight, and it pulls right out. And then we're going to push them out through the bottom. Again, we're going to do the same thing on this front rotor. Get the paper towel nice and wet. With alcohol. I'm just going to clean both sides of the rotor. All right. Got a little rubbing with the front brake. Let's see if we got our wheel in there perfectly straight. So it's rubbing on the outside brake pad. So we're going to take that back out. See if we can Sure those are spread out as much as possible. Now let's remount. I still got a little rubbing, so we're going to do a little bit of adjustment on that caliper. So let's go ahead and tighten the wheel down. All right, so I've reclamped the bike into the stand here. Just put a rag there to protect the frame. But this is not something you don't want a whole lot of pressure on it. It's still got it's just kind of sitting in there, because you can squeeze and crush the frame. They tell you not to clamp them there, but I needed the bike a little higher in the bike frame or in the bike stand so I can work on this front wheel a little bit. So I put that up in there, and now we're going to adjust our front caliper here. So what we're going to do is just break the bolts loose. They don't have to be super loose. It just needs to be enough to where it's actually pretty loose there. So I'm going to hand tighten them. I want just enough to where it still moves around a little bit. All right, now that it can move, you can hit the front brake, and that will center the caliper onto the rotor. And now I'm going to tighten up just a teeny bit, get them snug so that the caliper actually stays in place. And now I'm going to check visually where the rotor is sitting. So we're nice and quiet there. Nice and quiet. So now we're going to set this to 6 Newton meters. We're going to tighten each bolt just a little bit. Because you can, by torquing each bolt a little bit at a time, and you also want to hold the brake. So we're already at 6 there. All right. Now we're going to go to 8 Newton meters, and that should be tight enough. nice and quiet. All right.